Welcome back to another in the series of Giantstock's Giants Talks. This one featuring Mark Cosh, which Andre Pettipas, the Giants fans would definitely be familiar with Mark. The drummer keeping the beat for everybody in the back. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
So we've had you on a couple times before, usually with Andre there, so we don't get to focus too much on you yourself.
Usually a good thing.
Yeah. So you go by both Mark S Cosh.
Yep.
Sometimes Marcus Cosh I see floating around as well.
That's an old nickname, basically.
Yeah.
Marcus was
enough.
a nickname.
And then you'll see your logos, the
Yeah.
MSC on everything. So
Yep. Branding.
Now, way back when I started podcasting, I would have met you through Jeff Ballaston, which shout out to Jeff. He kind of helped me get a start there in podcasting when I was co-hosting with him.
Yep.
So I believe just based on that, even alone, your origins are Trenton based.
Yeah, I'm a Trenton rat.
So maybe if we want to go back to your Trenton days,
Oh, geez.
where I'm Pictou County based, so I have a little bit of a bias where I want to hear a little bit about it. But when did you start getting involved in music growing up in Trenton?
I was about 13 years old. I started going to shows, and then a good friend, Paul Shaw, so shout out to him. He was doing all ages shows, and he showed me how to start booking shows and all of that. So I was about 13 when I started booking different shows, I guess.
That must
Pictou
be
County.
the Trenton Youth Center.
Trenton Youth Center, Pictou Youth Center, Westville Air Cadet Hall, North End Rec Center.
Oh, amazing. A little
Yep.
bit of all of them.
Whatever
Crazy.
was available that weekend, and whatever cost the least amount of money.
And now I grew up with Paul and was around him when he was in many of his bands, definitely not all of them. There's a few years where we weren't too close, so I didn't know all of his members.
Mhm.
But in those eras, what are some of the bands that you would have been involved in directly? Because outside of booking shows, you were performing.
Yeah, so first band was with another Trenton guy, Corey Bowser.
Okay.
And then from there on, played in, I guess the first real band that was playing shows was some other friends, Jeremy, Nevin, and Jimmy. We had a band called Sudarian that then changed the name to The Wait, and only did like maybe 2 or 3 shows with that band. And then I started up a punk rock band with Nick Rocky, and we had a band called Tape Wheel.
Okay, yeah.
And that was a very long time. We had that band for, probably close to 10 years, realistically.
I think there's a Google Drive out there with some MP3s from back in those days, too. So
Oh, God, delete them.
yeah, I can't remember if I saw specifically, but it's kind of ringing a bell. I think that might be in the archive.
Yeah, it was one of those kind of punk bands that everybody absolutely hated, but yet we still played shows. So.
And now, at what point were you drumming the whole time?
Yep.
So at what point did you start doing a little bit more on production end, where because you're also an audio engineer?
Pretty early on. Some of the first stuff I recorded was actually was Tape Wheel, and it was using computer microphones in the room and kind of getting everything that way. And I remember recutting vocals over top of the music, and we used like one of those old like stick computer microphones.
Yeah.
It was too thin sounding, so we poked a hole in a Pringles can
Yeah.
and stuck it through that, and then Nick sang into the Pringles can,
Amazing.
and that's how we did our first like demo.
Yeah.
So I was probably only realistically 14 when I started trying to get into recording, and then it just became one of those things where we didn't have the money to go anywhere else, and somebody had to do it.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
Just kind of, I guess, kept going from there.
And so it seems like on both ends of the music spectrum for you, you like to tinker and be able to do a little bit of, besides like the just being able to do it yourself.
Yep.
You like to experiment a little, because I know that you have quite a vast collection of drums and accessories and drum kits. Like how many do you have now, do you think?
I don't know.
It's just a big collection.
Over a dozen.
And then on top of that, with being an audio engineer and that being a job for you as well.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that kind of falls over in that too, where you like to experiment with.
Oh,
a few
100.
different
I'm a nerd for sounds.
Yeah.
So if I can, it doesn't matter if it's a $2,000 snare drum or if it's a $50 guitar pedal.
Yeah.
And it's all about the doing weird stuff with said pieces of gear. So like a reverb guitar pedal might sound kind of crappy on a guitar if it's like a cheap one, but what would it sound like if you put an entire drum kit through
Yeah.
that one pedal?
Cool.
Like
yeah.
just little things like that.
Yeah.
And
Little
then,
thinking outside the box.
That's exactly it. Something to be a little bit different. So a lot of the stuff that I'll produce, like if you really dive in and listen to some of the songs that I produce for other bands, you'll hear weird sound effects in the background, kind of blended in and all that stuff too. I won't say what they are, but
Yeah.
that way people have to listen.
I know that I'm definitely not catching all of them, but I know from listening to a couple of your recordings, there's a couple times where I've mentioned just over the last couple of years, like, what's this and what's that? Like, you can hear little things that are those little added finesses in there.
Yep.
So when did you actually join up with Andre to be part of Andre Pettipas and the Giants?
Jeez, was it? It's almost 9 years now, I think.
Wow, yeah. Okay.
It was right from the get-go. I was playing in a kind of like a cover band in Antigonish, and he popped out to one of the shows that I was doing, and he's like, "Hey, I have this project I'm doing with my brother Travis, and we need somebody to play drums." And asked if I was interested. I said, "We'll see." He sent me some of the songs. I was liking them, and then he posted up a cover of him doing "Change" by Blind Melon.
Yes.
And I heard that, and I was like, okay, there's definitely something here. I definitely want to work with these guys. And then next thing you know, we have a rehearsal. Drove down to Linwood. We had a rehearsal, and the next morning we drove up to Cape Breton and started the first album.
Wow.
So we were a band for less than 24 hours, and we started the first album.
I do know, too, from talking with John and Travis and from being in the orbit of you and the band, that he does seem to have, like, once he gets his hooks into you and you're buying into the idea, there's no end date. It's like it's like signing a contract, but they didn't put an end date on it. It's that, okay, we do this now. Yeah. And so now you're the person that
I'm
does
life
that.
now,
Yeah, it's amazing.
Signed and sealed in blood.
And big part of that now this year is Giantstock, which is why we're doing this little series too. So that's been able to bring in a lot of different bands from different regions, especially this year.
Yep.
So I know from being around you guys too that a lot of those bands, you guys know from performing with them when you were on tour.
Yep.
And when I did talk with your other bandmates, we had a moment where I asked them for any stories from when they're on tour. I know Andre always does the tour stories.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for maybe a more positive story instead of something bad that happened. Just, is there anything that was like a big moment for you where, as somebody who was always wanting to perform and always wanting to be involved, did you hit a moment where you're like, wow, like, I can't believe I'm here?
Oh, you put me on the spot. It's really hard to say, man. It's not like so much. The ones that get me are not so much the big moments. It's not, playing to these massive crowds or anything like that. It's kind of playing in this town that you've never played before.
Yeah.
That you had never been before and sometimes never even heard of.
Yeah.
And having a smaller crowd there. And next thing you know is you're looking off and there's, a table that are singing along to your songs. And you think, how the hell do these guys know this?
Yeah.
That's definitely kind of like a big one, but I mean, realistically, like when we're on the road, don't get me wrong, it's all fun, but it's also like it's work. Like we see highways, venues, gas stations, and McDonald's.
Yeah, a lot of yellow line if you're just staring out the window the whole time.
That's basically it, The exciting stuff is going through the cities.
Yeah.
And I have a thing like if especially when Andre's driving, because he does a lot of the driving on the road. We'll hit a little small town. We'll be going through a small town, and I'll be sitting in the back, and I'll pull up Wikipedia and start kind of like searching up the town. Like, what's this town all about? Who's famous that are from here and stuff like that. So it's seeing kind of the country in that way, even just a quick pass by, is definitely always a highlight. The days off when you go into like, especially when we get out west and go to like Lake Louise or something like that,
Yeah.
and see the mountains and the ocean side and all that. That's definitely a big plus. But
And I don't know, last year when you guys did a couple cross Canada tours, a few of you went down to Seattle. Did you get down to that one too?
that was me, Andre, and John
Yeah.
went down. So, but I mean, even though that was a fun time, like we spent more time at the border on the way back.
Yeah,
And
fair enough.
See three guys in a big white 15-passenger van coming back
Yeah.
from Seattle with nothing in the van because we already emptied the van, so it's a little suspicious.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, that was like going down to see the Mopop Museum.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool seeing like the Nirvana exhibit there. The Jimi Hendrix exhibit was going on at the same time. I've never really been like a huge like not really my cup of tea like that style of music, but
Yeah.
seeing the console there that came out of Electric Lady Studios, and then seeing a photo of Jimmy and Eddie Kramer sitting there behind the console and stuff like that was pretty cool.
Some fanboy moments.
Oh, 100%. More for Eddie Kramer than for anything else. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So.
And now for the big event, Giantstock, that's coming up.
Yep.
And I mean, that's not the end of things this year. You guys have a lot more to come, because I know I will also be over at Somo, which you guys will be performing at.
Yep.
But for now, the big event, Giantstock, it's culminating in a couple days.
Yeah.
So what are you looking forward to doing the most, aside from your own performances? I know that there's 3 days out there and there's a few other things to do, but last year was such a fun event.
Yep.
And great vibes it seemed to be with everybody the entire weekend. So is there anything that you're really looking forward to kind of recapturing or doing different this year than last year?
Recapturing, yeah, it's the big thing out there for me is it's just all a bunch of buds.
Yeah.
It's all friends. It's all, good experiences, no assholes. Can I say assholes?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, good. So it's just good vibes. It's
Yeah.
friendly people and stuff like that, and it's not often that you get all of your friends in one place.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
true.
a huge plus. And then there's so much creativity that comes from it all. Singing along to your friends' songs, seeing them sing back, and then just the people that you don't get to see, not just musicians, like, the families down there in the area,
Mhm.
seeing like Orville, Mason, and that whole family and stuff like that. It's just always good to see them all.
Yeah.
Those are going to be the kind of like the big moments, rather than just music. And of course, like, the music is top notch.
Yeah, and not to diminish anyone else on the bill, but some of the musicians that are playing there, you've produced them in the studio now too.
Yep.
Where you've done recordings with some of these artists
Yep.
as well. So it must be exciting, aside from your own personal performances, to be able to share the stage with these other musicians
Oh,
that
yeah,
you've been working
100%.
with all along
Yeah.
too. So
You definitely learn to know their songs when
Yeah.
you've been mixing and editing them for months and listen to the lyrics consistently for months
Yeah.
on end. So, but yeah, no, there's a few bands that are playing out there that I've got the honor to work with, and more coming up that I'll be working with and stuff as well.
Well, definitely keep me in mind when you're doing more recordings in the future, so you can send some of those bands my way, and we'll get them
Gladly.
on the camera here as well.
Gladly, I have a list for you already.
Amazing. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing all those bands, and just the same as you, reconnecting with different acquaintances and friends that I've made over the last couple of years that are all going to be sitting in the same spot for 3 days. So it should be a good little cap off to the summer, and we'll get ready to kick off the fall, and I'll be joining you guys along for some of that as well. So I'm sure we're going to have more Andre Pettipas and the Giants content coming over the next couple months. And for anyone out there that's watching this right now, there's weekend passes, of course, but if you're a little slow on the go and you're watching this like on Friday night or on Saturday, there's day passes as well, so it's not too late for you to come out and join us out at the ponds.
We definitely suggest the weekend though.
Yo, yeah,
It's
definitely.
it's good to just get out there and camp, and like the property is absolutely beautiful. So.
Yeah, amazing. I'm planning on spending a little bit more time on that beach area. I did get kayak out last year for one morning. I was out for about half an hour, but nobody was awake yet.
No.
So might take advantage of the crowd a little bit more this year and get out and socialize.
I didn't get to the beach once.
Oh, there you go. So that's on our to-do list. We'll have to do that right on Friday. We'll get some beach time in before everything kicks off.
Works for me.
Excellent. All right, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.